going too early under the NFP rules, but you start 3 days after. Are you abusing NFP at that point in time? Like I just don't think people realize all of this talk about abusing NFP seems to come from people that don't actually have any experience on how NFP works or using it themselves.
That's true.
Welcome back, everyone. Craig and Jonah here. It is early,
It is.
and today, you got here when scheduled. No flare ups with the missus, huh?
Nope, we've worked everything out.
God, that's so good to hear.
Because what was the issue last week? Oh, yeah, the gardening.
Yeah, I was editing that video last night, getting it ready. I think by the time people hear this, it'll have been a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, that was old news. I completely forgot.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was just a week ago.
sorry to open up old wounds.
No, that's okay.
I had a
Learned some valuable lessons.
okay. Well, you're never too old to learn.
That is what they say. It feels like that in marriage, at least. You call it learning.
Feels like Groundhog Day.
Yep. That's true.
So we're getting ready to take this long family vacation, and I had a little bit of a health scare the other day.
Really?
Yeah, we'll just wait.
Okay.
So we're a couple days out, and I'm out in the yard playing with the kids. They're playing soccer, so we've got like 5-gallon buckets set up as goals on each end, and I'm out there, and I just kind of shifted my weight one way. All of a sudden, I felt this pop in the back of my calf, bottom of my calf, and it was like I felt something pop or roll or something in there, and my whole leg felt really strange to the point where I had to go sit down. I was like, uh-oh.
Oh.
And my immediate thought was like an Achilles injury.
Like Giannis. That happened to him during the playoffs.
I guess I haven't been following the basketball. What was his injury?
Oh, it had some kind of fancy name.
I had a guy that works with me had almost the exact same issue where he was just doing something very unremarkable and like literally tore his Achilles, and I was like, uh-oh.
Oh.
Because I think I can't just leave that, because apparently like the tendon will like retract up under your leg, and you got to go and have surgery. And so I kind of wandered around, and I sat down, and I'm like, this. I've never really had, and I do a lot of dumb stuff, right?
On a daily basis, weekly basis?
All the time. Daily. I do CrossFit. We do like ridiculous stuff. I never get hurt. And all of a sudden, like,
playing football.
Literally, I just pivoting weirdly on our yard. And I debated whether to tell my wife. I was like, can I like, she's going to see me limping. I was like, maybe it'll go away. But I was like, this isn't going to go away. But it went away. Like a day later, it went away. So that was a close one. I was thinking I'm going to jeopardize this whole dang trip. But so far, so good.
Well, Giannis had a strain to his left soleus, which is part of the calf, apparently. But it was a pop as well. So
I don't know. Maybe I've been healed. Maybe it was a magic.
Miraculous. I don't know about magic.
That's what I meant. Same thing. So, anyway, actually, someone I know who's not Catholic, who I was on an interview with the other day, said, "Hey, you're going to do a response video to this Butker thing." Of course, everyone's heard about it. And if you live under a rock somewhere, he's a
kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Chiefs, who apparently is a super trad guy and has spoken out before, was giving the commencement address at, I think, Benedictine College, which is a very conservative Catholic university in Kansas, right?
Okay.
And if you looked at if you looked at any of the comments in Drama Online, you'd think he was like calling for Handmaid's Tale or something like that. Like, holy cow, what did this guy say? And so I watched the video, and I was actually a little underwhelmed. I mean, there was stuff
You'd
that
have given a more strong speech.
well, I just didn't understand what. I mean, it was mostly just I don't know fluff and stuff. I didn't think anything was all that controversial, but he made a couple points.
I agree. It wasn't that impressive to me either. It was just a speech, and he just gave his opinions.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but
Which apparently is a big deal nowadays. So.
yeah, but perhaps the funnest part about it is he said something that Taylor Marshall, our good friend Taylor Marshall, and your soon to be wrestling opponent.
Hopefully.
Been
training.
Yeah, all right. I don't know if Taylor's been training, but we'll find out. So Taylor did a response video, and then our even better friend John Farrell did a response to those two guys.
I don't think we're gonna wrestle John.
No.
If he wants to, I'd think about it, but
maybe
no cigarette breaks.
That's right. You're being called out, John. So John did a response video and actually got blocked by Taylor Marshall too.
Oh
yeah, so
man, you guys are in good company.
I did. I went on. He posted on Twitter. I went up. Gave him one of those bro fist like gifs or whatever. So it's kind of fun.
Oh, that's funny.
So we're in good company, and but was so weird. And I'm gonna play just a short clip of this. Is the I think Taylor was more or less agreeing with the kicker, but well, John Farrell just has his own.
And we're gonna talk about John's response too.
We're gonna talk about John's response. So John will probably see this. So so anyway, let me see if I can tee this up here. Let's see. Share screen. Here we go. I have to add it. Okay. So I'm gonna play this couple minutes, of course, and so this is a response to John's response to Taylor's response to it. So I love it. We're like 4 levels deep into this.
Yeah.
So here's a couple, just a few seconds.
Here you go.
Let's see here. Make sure it's playing the audio. I think it is.
See what he says. Oh, that's the end of it. So it's here. Well, let's redo that real quick.
Spin it. There is nothing natural about Catholic birth control.
All right. So since there's nothing natural about it, how can we do that? How can we do? Because there has to be something natural about Catholic birth control and playing God. Okay. So I could make the case that it's not natural, but everyone says it is. Before we do that though, let's go to Taylor Marshall and see what he says about what the kicker told us about NFP. Share this tab instead. All right, take it away, Taylor.
Heterodox ideas abound even within Catholic circles. For let's be honest, there is nothing good about playing God with having children, whether that be your ideal number or the perfect time to conceive.
Wow. Okay. So what we have right now, we have a problem in the church right now because young people, 22.
By the way, he cut off the part where they hear. Look, he cut it off before they talked about nature.
Okay. So
here, listen.
There is nothing good about playing God with having children, whether that be your ideal number or the perfect time to conceive.
Wow.
Okay, perfect time to conceive. Then he says there's nothing natural about Catholic birth control, which can only mean NFP. That's the only thing he's talking about, because there's no such thing as Presbyterian birth control. Everyone knows what Catholic birth control is. He's obviously talking about NFP, and he's saying NFP is not natural. So you've got to say that he's wrong. Catholic birth control is natural. Anyway, obviously that is a non-starter. There's nothing you can do with that. So Taylor, who is sold on NFP, just deleted that out and continued.
Okay. So what we have right now, we have a problem in the church right now because young people, 22 to 30 are being told what you need to do is just do NFP. And if you want to travel, if you want to, get a bass boat and get a house and get 2 new cars. You just do NFP for 5 years, and then you can get all your financial stuff lined up, and then you can have a baby.
That's not really what's going on. There's some of that, but primarily it's the moms that want to work, and or the increase in multiply part is getting tough, so they want to do NFP. It's just Catholic contraception. It's Catholic birth control. But the kicker has told us, no, that's not.
So I'm going to take that off. Thoughts, reactions?
So we've got the kicker that just signed a 5-year, $20 million contract telling people that NFP is wrong.
Have
Sure.
as many kids as you can.
Yep. From his
Good for-
perspective, I could see that. Then, I mean, that's part of it. But then you have Taylor Marshall talking about how when people begin their marriage, they practice NFP so they can get a bass boat.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think there's a single person that's taken that route.
Yeah, and how long was that effective? Like 15 days?
Yeah. We were going to do it 3 years, and we made it 3 weeks.
Like, especially if have never been intimate before with your spouse, there is a 0% chance of that working. Like, I mean, you're just not going to know how risky it is to engage in behavior during those time periods where you can't or you shouldn't, have sex. So, I don't know. The plan isn't foolproof. I'll tell you that. And then John.
Well, I want to add one part of this that I forgot. I want to finish this, and then we'll get back to John. So, all right.
Not natural. So you can't do what's not natural, but Taylor doesn't seem to want to go there. Hold on, let's see what else he says.
This is an abuse in the Catholic Church, and it is time.
It's not an abuse. Sorry, I think I've said that before. Like abortion is not an abuse. It's all bad, okay? To do what is unnatural is not an abuse. It is illicit.
For Catholics, particularly the Pope and the bishops and the priests, to start setting this correct. If you read the documents of the church, you have to have grave or serious reasons to use natural family planning.
Okay.
So a bass boat, is that grave?
Depends where you live. I don't know. How
Yeah.
big's the boat?
Yeah. You could fit a bunch of kids in it? I don't know.
It's so funny. I mean, watching these guys all, like, I don't agree with any one of these guys' takes, really.
Yeah.
But, and I've been thinking to myself, well, first of all, like you said, I don't know anyone that actually follows that tract. But let's say you did that. Let's say you took 5 years off.
Mm-hmm.
And you and your spouse worked hard, saved money, put yourself in a position where she can quit her job, and then you can you can have as many kids as you want. Like, maybe you have more kids in the long run, because you're financially, just able to bring more kids on, right?
Bring in more nannies.
More nannies, get bigger house. I mean, that whole idea that the good Catholic thing to do is to start having kids when you're young and impoverished, and that's the route we took. We had our first 2 kids when I was in graduate school, not making any money at all, and I would say to some extent we still are experiencing the financial effects of that. And I'm not even saying I would go back and do it differently, but you could do a lot of things better, I think, for your family if you had the benefit and were disciplined to be a good financial saver and planner, even a few years, do some things as spouse, grow, in ways that are difficult when you're parents to young children and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's talking about a vast minority of people that can actually pull that off.
Is that really the problem? Is that
with birth control, like with artificial birth control, you can do that.
Yeah.
But NFP? He's one of those guys that thinks it's 99.99% effective.
I don't know that Taylor Marshall uses NFP. Like I said, that just does not seem like.
He only has 8 kids.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I wonder.
Maybe he sleeps in the doghouse.
I'd like to know. Well, when we get him signed up for the wrestling match, we'll do a halftime podcast interview with him. We'll ask about his sex life.
Ironically, I was actually reading an article about that. It's called sleep divorce, where couples sleep separate so they can get a better night's sleep.
Mm.
And it's actually a pretty high percentage. Like 45% of men occasionally or consistently sleep in another room,
Mhm.
which I don't know. I just think all that, like if my wife came to me and said, I think we're going to sleep in separate rooms, be nervous, because when is the intimacy going to happen? Like, I mean, I suppose you could meet up and then go to separate rooms, but it just, I don't know, it doesn't feel right.
We could do that. My wife's been sleeping on the couch a lot recently because the kids fall asleep late, and I just leave her, and I'm just like.
And you guys still manage to find time for each other.
We still find time, little pockets of time.
Baby boomers have the lowest rate of sleep divorce, 22%, just in case you're wondering.
Okay, that's good to know.
Just good to know.
Well, okay. So that's one issue. I thought it was funny that Taylor Marshall wasn't conservative enough. Like when Taylor Marshall is too liberal for you, boy, I don't know what that says about the rest of us.
Yeah. So Harrison Butker and John Farrell, they're in good company together.
Apparently, how about that? But like that, like you said, I think it's very handy for a guy that's got a $20 million contract to say, yeah, you shouldn't be inhibiting at all the number of children you have.
Mm-hmm. And he just kicks the ball. It's not like he puts his life on the line. I mean, it's true.
Yeah, that's right. He has a much better higher chance than others of being able to complete that contract.
Yeah, and he's not going to get CTE more than likely.
Yeah, although maybe they're drilling for him now. All those.
Yeah, they're going to be headhunting.
Yeah, but then Taylor was actually using that as an opportunity to like I said, to remind us of, well, you got to have good cause. I can't even use his voice. I can't even imitate his voice. You got to have this grave cause, just reason. And I went around and around with someone about this on, I think, Twitter the other day too. Like, grave cause to do what exactly? Like, what if you're married and you don't have grave cause? What are you supposed to be doing that you can't do without grave cause? Or
yeah, like is it okay to abstain without grave cause?
One guy got on and says, well, if you don't have grave cause, you should be actively having sex during the fertile times. I'm like,
I don't think that's a requirement. I mean, I agree with him, but
it's the whole grave clause or whatever the language is in Humanae Vitae makes no practical sense to me, because what are you obligated to do? Like
yeah, there's no obligation.
Yeah, so like so then do you sin when you get around? Think about this, for example. So we're following all the rules right now because we're getting old and we're ready to be done having kids. So that means
regarding NFP,
right? Not take theological advice from us.
Just, I mean, checking. I wasn't sure if we'd given up on other things too, but
we're following all the Marquette rules, okay? Which means that you have peak, so that's the day of ovulation. That's where you're going to get yourself in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Then you add a day to that. So we know it's been very accurate. When peak is, you take day 1, and then you add 3 more days to that for good measure. So by the time that the doors open again for us, we are literally like 6 days out from ovulation.
Okay.
So what if we decide, you know what, we're going to start being intimate on day 4? after ovulation or day 3. Even for us, as fertile as we apparently seem to be, we are very unlikely to get pregnant there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we misusing NFP? Like, fertility is not a causal thing. Like, you can, even if you do it on peak days, some couples have difficulty getting pregnant anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every hour, every day that you go after ovulation, for example, greatly reduces your chance of getting pregnant, but there is that slim chance. So if you stay away from peak day and day 1 after, but then you start, let's say, quote unquote, going too early under the NFP rules, but you start 3 days after, are you abusing NFP at that point in time? Like I just don't think people realize. All of this talk about abusing NFP seems to come from people that don't actually have any experience on how NFP works or using it themselves.
That's true. I don't know.
It's just
It's
not
just
that
hard
exact.
to believe you can misuse it because it's so difficult to use in the first place.
Yeah.
Like
Catholic birth control. Yeah. If it's Catholic birth control, why isn't everyone using it? Like, tell me that.
True.
If it's
If it's
just
that
like
great.
birth control, why isn't everyone using it? There's a reason why very few people use it. Because it's really hard.
Yeah, it works if you don't have sex.
And it's not very effective if you don't follow it exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that just drives me crazy. That just, because they say this, but then when you're like dig in and like, okay, well, what does that mean in real life?
Mm-hmm.
So if a couple knows that, hey, my wife's ovulation is going to happen on Friday night, and we decide to go to the high school football game, we're out late, we come home tired, we're too tired to do anything, and we skip it and wait till the next day. You've reduced your chances of getting pregnant.
That's all scrupulous stuff. Do you?
Well,
think...
I'm just saying that invites scrupulosity. I mean, if you really apply this notion, I can make you real scrupulous real fast.
Well, that's true.
It's just like,
yeah, I mean, I just find it hard to believe that that's that important.
Yeah.
You know, marriage is about doing the best you can for your spouse while loving God. And I think the rules kind of muddy the waters.
Mm-hmm.
Just about what you can and can't do and create tension where it doesn't need to be.
True. I don't know how you listen to a Catholic podcast other than this one where it doesn't resort into the rules and, oh, wow,
Mm-hmm.
watch out for this. To the extent that actually we get, remember our old friend Thomas Palega?
Yeah. He's been gone from Twitter.
Yeah, one of the reels or shorts from my conversation with him where we were talking about masturbation,
Mm-hmm.
wrangled someone's feathers the other night, last night, and started commenting. And let me play that clip for us, sir. Let's see here. Because we got accused of being too soft on the masturbators. Which, it's been a little while.
Sounds like an interesting movie title.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Going
right.
soft on the masturbators.
That's right. So, all right. Let me play this clip for us. And hopefully I get the audio. I think I got it. Okay. Oh, wrong one.
Is if such a high percentage of men do it, at least occasionally, how can it possibly be a grave or objectively wrong matter? Like, that's where I struggle to reconcile that, because it's like either it's bad and we should avoid it, but if it's that bad and avoidable, how come nearly every man that I know has a problem?
Number one is that the same way that the Catechism approaches masturbation, right? Correct, precise theological way, it is a grave matter. But in practice, because there's so many, circumstances and people don't have full free will in exercising, this act, right? That in practice, virtually, if not always, it's a venial sin.
What do we do with that?
It kind of makes sense. I mean, that's what it says, and we just, for some reason, we don't treat it like that within the church. Like at least people don't talk about it like that.
Yeah, like and so this guy started commenting, and of course he accused us of being addicted to masturbation, and we're just looking for an excuse for it. I'm just like, hold on. I said, he said, oh, it's great.
Nobody's addicted to that around here.
Yeah. Define addiction, right? And he said, and he used the term, well, it's grave evil, and I'm like, well, that's not what the catechism says. And so I quoted the catechism, and he's like, well, it's what you, it's that's what you're implying is that it's not sinful and all this. And I was like, well, I said, why does the church think it's bad? Like, what's the reasoning behind it? And then, not surprisingly, 38th chapter of Genesis got brought up, and I went on that whole thing about, okay, so why did God single Onan out and strike him down when literally people are wasting their seed all the time, millions of times a day, and no one gets struck down? And I invited him on. I said, but there again, in that one little short, I don't think there's anything about that was inconsistent with what the catechism said, and it really is just me and him. I have a question about that. Like, I legitimately have a difficult time understanding why it's intrinsically gravely wrong every time, all the time. And he used an example of, well, eating food is good, but if you overeat, that becomes sinful. I'm like, well, we don't treat masturbation that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's doesn't matter whether you eat a speck of it or a whole plate of it, right?
Yeah.
To use your analogy. And he's like, oh, so
The thing is that if people live less scrupulous lives, does that bring them closer to God? Like, and I think it could, because I think if you live life where you're afraid of breaking every single tiny rule, you're living out of fear instead of out of love.
And I've said this before, is I mean, if you throw enough energy at this issue, I guess you can eradicate it.
And that's why they lived in the desert. We've talked, talked about that before too.
Yeah. To the exclusion of what? Like, are you growing in virtue in other ways? Are you rooting out other vices that, I'm sorry to say it, probably are more detrimental to society than your problem at home in the evenings or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just so strange that when it comes to these kinds of matters, and you start talking about sex and intimacy in a Catholic podcast, like all the standard walls and disclaimers and warnings and bells and all goes up, and I guess, I don't know, maybe we should do the same thing. We should just not talk about it and say, here's what the catechism says.
But the catechism doesn't say exactly what
I'm just using the words of the catechism. I told him, I said, you don't like the catechism? I said, go take it up with Rome. Don't take it up with me.
Yeah.
You can't even have a conversation. Like, you can't even just discuss.
I mean, that clause was put in there for a reason. And the people that take the hardline stance are basically telling everybody to go into hell, which it seems just impossible for it to be that a sin that would consistently cause people to go to hell, I would hope,
Yeah, I mean, if we apply it literally and it's just gravely and intrinsically evil all the time, I mean, that personally, this is just me speaking. That leads me down to a path of conversations in my head that really caused me to struggle with my notion of God as being a good God,
and towards using possibly chemicals to reduce hormone levels or whatever else sorts of steps you need to take.
Yeah,
where people have done that online.
Yeah,
like our old friend Robert Sock, that we talked about before, how he would take antidepressants to reduce any sexual urge.
Right.
And I don't think we're supposed to live that way either.
Yeah, I don't know what the right answer is. And, I don't know that kind of stuff is good for anyone. But I also say I don't know I'm not sure how harmful it is, other than the guilt that you experience as Catholics because you're so
Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since we talked about that, and I just wish it was just a little easier, just to have an adult conversation about it. Like, let's be like, there are very few guys out there that can legitimately say they've never struggled with it, and maybe don't still struggle with it to some degree. And we just
And
supposed
most
to,
of those guys are liars.
yeah. I mean, there are guys. There are guys that there was just this guy the other day who was talking about having a former porn issue, and he said all the guys he knows that got rid of porn happen to pray the rosary every day.
Mm-hmm.
Which, hey, I'm not here telling anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling anyone they should use porn, nor am I telling anyone they should not pray the rosary.
It's quite a stance.
Yeah, I'm really taking a brave stance here, right? But you know, the degree of anguish and guilt, it kind of reminds me of something we talked about. I think it was the last episode. You know, a lot of good Catholic men miss communion quite a bit, I would
Mhm.
say.
Yeah.
At least not infrequently because of this, and I get why. I know why.
Mhm.
But again, you are depriving yourself of the greatest spiritual gift we could think of as Catholics. And you ask yourself, why is that so bad?
And the Catechism says it's more than likely a venial sin.
Yeah. Yeah. So you are cutting yourself off. You're depriving yourself of that grace because, and I would say oftentimes for most men it's circumstantial.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you're abstaining or life's just crazy or whatever. I doubt that there's very many Catholic men that are in a good functioning marriage that are choosing that over their spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's happening, it's probably happening for understandable, normal reasons. It's been a long time, pressure builds up. He's just looking for some relief, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not saying it's right, but is that really like the guy that just falls under those circumstances is cutting himself off from God? Man, that's hard for me to understand.
And I saw a similar debate on Twitter where it was primarily women were talking about how long their husbands should have to go before, like, it was about porn use and how often that happens. And there were women that thought their husband should have to make it months, without any sort of intimacy. And that's just not reasonable. Like, I think. So recently we've had, a lot of things going on. I had the bat fall on me. I had a bacterial infection in my arm. And so, like, for the past 6 weeks, it hasn't been as frequent as other times in our marriage.
Mhm.
And it was really tough.
Mhm.
And I feel like if you have intimacy with your spouse at least once a week, but twice a week is better, at least in our situation, that's like getting probably like at least $100,000 a year raise. Like, as far as, like, you just feel so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not even comparable. There's to ask, I think your husband, I mean, it depends on everybody's drive and everything like that too, but to ask a normal man to go months just easily isn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that there's not temptations to do other things at least. And they should be aware that that is just not a reasonable request.
Well, yeah, and I think for us Catholics too, I think is the request from someone who also believes her husband is not doing any solo activity, and they are not engaging any other acts themselves, or is it someone that they don't have any moral problem with that? Like, that whole notion, that question about whether men need sex, for example. I think it all comes down to, well, what happens when you're not having sex? Like, right? Like, I think I think most men, I think, I think for Catholics at least, especially if you follow, let's say, the traditional or the Christopher West model, we need sex because we need sexual release and all this, and that's the only way we're supposed to do it, right?
Mhm.
I think men need sexual release and women need sexual release more than they need to have sex. Obviously, if you can have sex, great, and do it, but there's lots of times reasons why that's not possible. So you create this tension by virtue of these other rules. So I don't know.
And the thing is that it's so much deeper than just a sexual release. It's really the connection with another person. That's the most important aspect of it. And I don't know why. Like there's something special about being connected to your wife in this. I don't know if it's biological or psychological, probably both. But when you are in that state of mind where you know you're working together towards a common goal of loving each other and raising a family and loving God, like you're pretty invincible. But once that all kind of falls apart and you're in like an abstinence period, it's just a lot tougher.
Yeah. Yep.
It just is.
I agree. I mean, I agree, and I think this.
Every single thing in your life gets more difficult during abstinence periods.
Yeah.
And there's more tension in the house. You might even argue about gardening.
Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically. But it's true.
Yeah.
You know, when you are intimate at least twice a week, you don't argue about stuff like that. And even if you do have a disagreement, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, intimacy cures all. For better or for worse, it cures a lot of things. And it makes life easier and makes your marriage better. And that's it. Like that's really it.
Yeah, there's this strange disconnect between those who like to elevate and talk highly about the benefits and even to some extent the spiritual realities of sexual intimacy, which are true. Like that's all true. Like it's very good. And on the other hand, but it's okay also if you just go weeks and months without it. Like, well, what is it? Which one is it?
Yeah.
Is it that great of a thing? Is it that something that God put his blessings on and brings all of this fruit to the relationship, including love and unity? Sorry, John. Right?
They're both there.
Yeah. Is it something that brings that great, wonderful blessings to the marriage? Or is it something that, if you have it, great. If not, that's okay too. Like, I don't think you get to have, like, you got to pick one of those.
I think for marriage, it's a requirement for a happy marriage. Maybe until you get very old, but even then, people still engage in that sort of thing, even when they're quite old. So
Old like me.
a young, spry man like yourself, I don't know.
Well, apparently, you got to be older than I am before you stop caring about all that stuff. So
Yeah, I'm certain of that too. But
yeah,
I don't know. It may not kill a man directly, but it can make him despair. It can kill marriages, and in some way that we can't scientifically understand, it just produces better marriages, and
Yeah.
it just does.
Yep. Oh, it's absolutely true. So I don't know. We're here just we want to encourage people to have as good and fulfilling of intimacy as possible and as frequently as possible.
For a better marriage, and and that trickles down to every aspect of your life.
I just can't think of too many people where their marriage becomes better without that. Now maybe there's seasons and that with trials and tribulations can bring couples together, but
nobody wants to stay in winter.
no.
Like when there's seasons, some people have been in winter for a long time, but there can be a renewal, another spring.
Yeah.
It happened with us, so it can happen to anybody.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anything else to add to all that?
I don't think so.
So that I guess that's our everyone had to react to the Butker thing. So that's our reaction to the
Mhm.
Butker thing. So we'll make sure we put that in the title so we get all the reviews
You're
that
gonna-
everyone's searching for. But yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to talk about this grave reason thing with NFP for a while because it really grinds my gears,
Mhm.
and this was a nice opportunity. So thank you, Taylor Marshall, and thank you, John Farrell, for teeing that up for us.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll get him back on and duke it out over that again.
Yep.
So maybe we'll get a panel, us, Taylor Marshall, and John Farrell together. That'd be kind of fun, huh?
Yep.
So, invitations out there, guys. I know you're diligent listeners of the show, so contact us. We'll set it up. So, all right,
All right.
all right. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one.